Path of Exile 2 is a very highly anticipated sequel to obviously Path of Exile, a very complex ARPG. Path of Exile 1 is considered to be one of the best ARPGs by many people in the community, and I would agree with that. I think the one issue that Path of Exile 1 suffers from is accessibility. It is extremely complex and intimidating to new players. So the dev team behind Path of Exile 2 had the challenge of making this game more accessible while also not dumbing it down completely for casual players, right? They need to respect the veterans of Path of Exile 1 while also streamlining the experience for new players to digest and understand easier. So that is something that we will be looking at in this review, and if Path of Exile 2, is able to accomplish that. If you guys are new here, welcome. I am not a video game journalist. I'm not paid by any companies. I'm just a dude who plays video games for the love of it. So if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like and a subscribe. I'm going to tell you if Path of Exile 2 early access is worth the $30, right? And I'm going to answer the question straight up. Is Path of Exile 2 a good game worth spending, your time in? Before we get into the review, let me preface that I'm fairly versed in the ARPG genre. I've obviously played like all of the Diablo games, and I've played some other random ARPGs here and there, but Path of Exile 1 is a game that I've always struggled to, get into because it's just, pretty intimidating for new players, and it requires a lot of time to understand that game, and I just kind of haven't had that time recently. I have tried to get into Path of Exile 1, and I do want to one day, but Path of Exile 2 seemed like a great opportunity for me here to kind of get into this genre. So I'm not an ARPG noob, but I'm also not like a Path of Exile 1 veteran, right? And also the two big dogs at the top of the ARPG genre currently, in my opinion, are Diablo 4 and Path of Exile. So obviously Path of Exile 2 is going to get compared to Diablo 4 a lot here. So yeah, let's just go ahead and touch on some basics here, the functionality, the combat, the graphics, the atmosphere, all of that sort of thing. I love to talk about it. So the first thing I love about Path of Exile 2 is just the atmosphere here. When you first boot up the game, you're met with one of the coolest cutscenes I've ever seen in a long time in video games. The opening cutscene to this game is crazy. The character selection screen is also just super cool. Just little things like that to just add more sauce to the game and get you more interested in the universe here, right? The art direction is fire, and graphically this game looks incredible. I also really love the world you're running around here, right? It's a pretty linear story. What we've gotten in early access is basically like a 3-act campaign, and everywhere you go in this campaign, it feels like a completely new area. You get entirely new enemies, there's a new environment, and it's really refreshing to see that, because Diablo 4, okay, that's the most recent ARPG I've played. It's just like an open sandbox, and you're killing the same like 4 enemies over and over, and that felt kind of lame to me, And I love that Path of Exile 2 is a more linear experience, but like there's different areas that all feel different from each other. We also have 6 classes in this game, at least in early access, and it's amazing. I love all the different classes. I can't wait to play on each one. The gameplay you're watching right now is monk gameplay. The monk in this game is super fun. I'm definitely gonna have to play more on each class, but so far they all look really fun and different from one another, which is super important in my opinion with ARPGs. It's not a good thing to have classes feel the same as one another because it just kind of hurts the replayability, but so far all of the classes look super unique and different, and that is really awesome here, and the build potential is crazy. Path of Exile is known for having crazy skill trees, and that is no different here. The skill tree, I will say, looks a lot more organized, but there's still a lot there, but it's not as intimidating as Path of Exile 1, and it's actually more exciting to get into the skill tree because the build potential is nuts. One thing that I was just a tad bit disappointed with here is that there's not necessarily like a character creator. You can't really like customize the appearance of your character. That's fine. I was just a little bit disappointed, but it's not the end of the world. Basically each class has a pre-built character that you play on. You can't customize the physical appearance of it, which is fine, and I know Path of Exile 1 had the same thing. I'm not like upset. It's not a deal breaker for me. Personally, I would just like a character creator. I don't know if that's going to be coming after early access or what, but if it's not the end of the world. I was just a little disappointed. Now let's go ahead and talk about the combat here, because the combat, in my opinion, is actually really revolutionary to the ARPG genre. So to me, a lot of ARPGs feel like I'm just throwing numbers at hordes of enemies, right? Like I'm just throwing big numbers all over the place, which can be fun, but at a certain point it gets really boring. Now Path of Exile 2 makes it interesting because you have to be more calculated with the combat here. And honestly, this is gonna sound weird to you. I would compare this combat to like Dark Souls, right? Like you have dodge rolling and things like that, and magic and all sorts of things. It's obviously not a Souls-like by any means, but like you have to be calculated with your attacks and you have to actively dodge attacks, right? That is basically what I mean when I'm comparing it to like Souls. And obviously your build matters a lot, but sometimes if you let your guard down, your build and your stats won't save you, man. You actually have to approach certain boss fights with a strategy, and you actually have to learn their moveset and kind of pay attention to what they're doing. You know, you can't just spam attacks and then just fly through the encounter. Like you actually have to be calculated, and there is kind of like a mechanical skill gap here at times, and I really like that. I like that in this genre. Like I think it fits really well in Path of Exile 2, and it makes your build even more important, and it just makes leveling up and everything that more satisfying, knowing that, you know, this difficult game gets easier when you start to level up. And I like it. This is a really challenging game. For me personally, like I'm kind of struggling with it. I don't know if my build is not optimal or what. I'm still figuring that out. But it's not an easy game by any means. There is a skill curve here, and I like that though. Like I really do like that because it makes progressing your character more satisfying, and there's more to it rather than just making a character that throws numbers out everywhere, right? I also just really like the sense of exploration here. You know, it's kind of like the classic RPG philosophy, right? Like if you're stuck on a boss, go somewhere else, level up, and, you know, get stronger, and then go back to that boss and attempt it again. That philosophy works really well with Path of Exile 2, and that's something that I really like, just because it encourages that sense of exploration, and you do get rewarded very well for exploring every inch of the map in this game. I love it, dude. I think it works really good, and I do think that this is a nice change of pace for the ARPG genre, and Path of Exile 2 is doing something really special here. So yeah, I really like what they're doing with the controls and the combat here, and I like the idea of being able to dodge roll out of attacks and being able to be more active during combat rather than just being a statue that just throws numbers at enemies, right? Like I think it feels really nice, and it's a change of pace being able to be more mobile in these types of games. I like it a lot. It's really good. They did a good job here. So yeah, man, overall Path of Exile 2 is just really good. I don't want to say anything about the campaign or the story or anything. That's for you guys to decide if you want to play it. The story here is great. I love the narrative here. It is actually really good, and there's more of an emphasis on it in this game, and I like that. I always like a strong narrative. The story here is pretty awesome, and I can't wait to dive deeper into this lore. Now, real quick, I'm going to compare this game to Diablo 4, right? It's obviously the other big dog in the ARPG genre currently, so I'm going to compare it because it makes perfect sense, and a lot of people are going to compare these games. This game blows Diablo 4 out of the water. And I will give Diablo 4 and Blizzard credit here, right? Because they did fix Diablo 4. It is a better game now. But Path of Exile 2 still blows it out of the water, man. And if you're looking for an ARPG game to play, I don't know why you would be playing Diablo 4 when this is out. I'm just going to say it because this is just a better experience. It rewards you more for the time you put in. Diablo 4, it just doesn't compare to this. Like, it just doesn't. And what I'm about to say next is coming from a Diablo fan. I am a lifelong Diablo fan. I love that franchise. It is so awesome, dude. But listen, Path of Exile 2 is the game we have been wanting from Blizzard for a long time. All right, that's just it. That's just the bottom line, point blank, period. This is the game Blizzard should have been delivering to us this whole time with Diablo 4. Straight up, no questions asked. Path of Exile 2 is amazing if you're a Diablo fan. I am loving it. I'm probably going to jump ship from Diablo 4, to be completely honest. This is this just blows it out of the water. I'm sorry, it does, and that's coming from a Diablo fan. Moving on, I want to go ahead and talk about the accessibility issues that Path of Exile 1 has. Does Path of Exile 2, kind of deliver that, right? Does it fix that? And I'm going to say yes. This game is way more accessible than Path of Exile 1. And I'm not saying Path of Exile 1 is a bad game by any means. I've seen that game, and I've seen it over the years. It looks awesome. I've just always been turned away from it just because it just looks like a lot of time. Path of Exile 2 does a great job at streamlining the mechanics and actually drip feeding you how the mechanics of how this game works. And after playing this game, I think I can go handle Path of Exile 1 now, so I might. But Path of Exile 2 is a much better experience for people who were intimidated by Path of Exile 1, like me, right? I tried to jump ship from Diablo to Path of Exile 1 a little bit ago, but it just didn't click for me. But I think it could click now because Path of Exile 2 does a better job at explaining those mechanics, and you can kind of figure it out without being as punished as heavily as you are in Path of Exile 1. So yes, it is more accessible than Path of Exile 1, but at the same time, Path of Exile 2 is not here to hold your hand by any means, right? It is still very punishing like Path of Exile 1, and there's still a learning curve here, but I like that. I want that with these types of games. I don't want like a hand-holding experience. I just kind of want information to be displayed more efficiently. That's just how I feel. Some people might disagree with me on that, but nonetheless, Path of Exile 2 is not here to hold your hand by any means, okay? It is not. It is a very intricate and in-depth game, but it does display all of the information better, in my opinion, right? It is just as in-depth and intricate as the first one, if not even more here. But like I said, it's just streamlined more into a more efficient way, in my opinion. So overall, is Path of Exile 2 Early Access worth your money and your time? I'm going to say yes, 100%. This is an amazing game, and I'm super excited for the full release. And the Early Access here, you can spend like hundreds of hours in it, all right? You can do that. And I know I personally plan on playing through the campaign on every class at least once, and that is like 100 hours of gameplay right there. If you're looking to play through the campaign like one time just to get a feel for it before it comes out, you're going to get about like 24 hours of content, and I think that is still worth the $30, considering there are a lot of AAA games out here that nickel and dime you $70 for a game that's about the same length. So I think Path of Exile 2 is worth it for the early access. $30 is not bad by any means, in my opinion. The other exclusive packs are up to you, but just know that this game will be free at some point whenever the full version comes out. So you won't have to pay $30 for it when it's fully out. It will be free later down the line. I just don't know when it's going to be free. I don't think anyone does know when it's going to be free, but I do think that if you are considering the early access here, it is 100% worth it, and you're going to get a lot of content and gameplay and fun out of it. And I'm sure all of your progress from early access is going to carry over to the full release of the game. I don't see why it wouldn't, and I'm sure that the developers would reward early access players who supported the game and paid $30 to play it early. But this game, when it fully comes out, is going to be crazy. There's going to be thousands of hours of content that you can experience in Path of Exile 2. That's just how the first game is, and I don't think that there's any better time to get onto this franchise than there is now, man. This is great. The Path of Exile community is a lot of fun to be a part of, and this is just a great live service game. Live service games can be pretty garbage in this day and age, and it's really nice to see a dev team working on a game like this with such care, especially after Diablo 4. That kind of sucked for a lot of Diablo fans. So if you're looking to jump ship from Blizzard, dude, Path of Exile 2 is 100% for you. And I think it's worth saying these types of games aren't for everyone. ARPGs are not for everyone by any means, but if you love ARPGs, Path of Exile 2 is what you need to be playing. This is a really good game. That is all I have to say, and I think I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. This is a great experience. It's a lot of fun. I can't wait. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. And if you guys did enjoy, make sure to drop a like and a subscribe. It really helps me out, and I do appreciate all the love this channel has been getting recently. We just hit 500 subs. I know it's not a lot, but we are kind of snowballing a community here, and I see a lot of you guys returning to my videos. So that means a lot to me. Thank you guys if you guys are returning, and if you guys are new here, make sure to drop a like and a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. But yeah, man, thank you guys for the support recently. It's awesome. I'm enjoying Path of Exile too. Let me know what you guys think of this game down in the comments below as well. Let's have a discussion about it. But yeah, anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. I'm out. Peace.